So, as I said, this architect of whom I learned myself very recently, you know, it is a problem. There were important architects in the world that, you know, it's very possible that you just don't hear of, or you know, in the multitude of names, you know, you could just ignore someone whose work is significant, and the work of Nicolai, or Niels, he is also known as Niels Eigtved. It was important. So Nicolai Eigtved, also known as Niels Eigtved, born on the 4th of June 1701, and he died on the 7th of June 1754. So he was 53 years old when he died. Was a Danish architect. He introduced and was the leading proponent of the French Rococo or late Baroque style in Danish architecture during the 1730s and 1740s. He designed and built some of the most prominent buildings of his time, a number of which still stand to this day. He also played an important role in the establishment of the Royal Danish Academy of Art and was its first native-born leader. Now, this will be really just an introduction into his work. I'm not at all an expert in his work, but this is a way to pay homage to an architect who meant something, not just for Denmark, but for architecture in general. I didn't see a portrait of him, but it is presumed that this which was part of a building, belongs to him. That it is a portrait, a sculpted portrait of this Danish architect. And this is also in his memory, in memoriam, some, you know, a bas relief, maybe based on a project by him. I don't know. You see his name there at the top. Okay, some drawings, a few drawings by him. You know, 18th century, the 18th century, but you know, although he is associated somehow with the French Rococo, in my opinion, his work is a very restrained form of Baroque. But maybe, you know, using the standards of a Scandinavian country, he was, you know, considered a Rococo architect. We'll see. Most of his buildings are like this. I mean, would you call this Rococo? Maybe inside there are some rooms which are more exuberant, but towards the outside they are, you know, quite austere. Anyway, yes, the interior has some decoration, but still, from here to Rococo, I think there is some distance. Okay, so but the architecture of Denmark, it has its distinctiveness, and you know, even for a non-expert like me, you can tell, you can feel that there is an architecture which is not French, which is not Italian, which is not Russian or British, is Danish. And you will see, just we looked, I have about 70 pictures with his work. This is an interior. I don't know, for some I couldn't find pictures. This might be one of them, yes. But this one, I think, I have is the so-called Marble Bridge in Copenhagen. So it was built between 1739, 1745. Interesting idea to use marble for a bridge. I don't know of any other bridge using marble, but it seems that this one in Copenhagen deserves its name. He also designed the pavilions left and right on the sides of the bridge. Yeah, it is in Copenhagen. But you see, the architecture is, with the exception of some inflamed parts in the corner of the buildings, they are, rather so-called classical. I mean, without a lot of ecstasy or exuberance. Well, it's good to know that, that Denmark didn't give to the world just Bjarke Ingels. Well, of course, there was also John Utzon, but somehow everybody is concerned with the Bjarke Ingels these days. They forget that, there was, and they had some other very good architects like Arne Jacobsen, the great international style architect, if I am to call him so. And there were others. So we just looked at the marble bridge by this Danish architect from the 18th century. Now, this one, no, I didn't find pictures. This one also, I don't know. And now we arrive at a palace that he built between 1743 and 1744, so 278 years ago. Again, as far as I know about the history of architecture, this wouldn't qualify for a Rococo building, even for a French Rococo. Rococo stands for, the ultimate inflammation of the Baroque, and this is. But this is often the case where towards the exterior the building is less exuberant than the interiors. It was not so easy to find pictures with the works of this architect, and the list of works that I worked with was actually in Danish, and it was a little bit difficult because I of course I don't know the Danish, and also the way of describing a work is a little bit different than the British or the English way or American way. But anyway, I found some images with his work, and yeah, this is a palace. Again in Copenhagen, it seems almost everything is in Copenhagen, or it was. Now in the present, there are important cities where interesting things happen. This is like a mansion in the country, and very much, I would say, Danish somehow, with a dark roof and then the very light walls. A pastoral, bucolic place, obviously not for the proletarians, but dignified, sweet place. What can we say? Interesting, the roofs, with the central parts. I'm talking about the left and the right buildings. It's always very nice in a Scandinavian country when it is sunny, and the sun somehow is even more valued because it's not very frequent recurrence or occurrence. So this was done by him. Then we see I think this was not a hospital. I translated for this that this was an experiment, again derived somehow from the French, where they created the habitable roofs, like you see here, following François Mansart. This one, this is a large depot, that, well, in the 18th century, it was like this, and the buildings still stand. It's a massive urban block designed by him, still, I would say, very austere by the standards of other countries or other cultures. more romantic is the ship than the building. And by the way, of Bjarke Ingels, it seems he lives on a ship. His home is on a ship. That's an interesting idea, and it's probably very nice. I'm sure he afforded to create a nice home for himself on the ship. Okay, now this there were, but again, I don't know if I have pictures. I do, important buildings. He designed several, but it wasn't very clear to me which ones. If this one and this one, or just this one, or just this one, I don't know. But they are in a very prestigious place in Copenhagen. I think these two were designed by him. And the proximity of water, of course, is always a great plus. Another urban building, rather, massive. Now, this is a hospital which became actually the Museum of Design in Copenhagen, the Danish Design Museum. But initially, it was a hospital that he designed. We see there on the right a poster with Toulouse-Lautrec. I guess they have exhibitions with other things, not just design, or maybe poster design. I don't know. I read about this. Yes, it's a building, but I don't know exactly its function. I translated, but I forgot its translation from Danish. I have to learn Danish in order to make this presentation again. I remember about this. I read he only contributed to this big existing building. He added these 4 towers, and maybe also this part of the building. Not the whole building was done by him, but the 4 towers. I remember reading that he added to the building. Interesting addition in a way. And now this is a church in Copenhagen, and I think this is the last work that I show today about this architect or of this architect. Is quite a tall spire. Interesting, the interior, because it has a flat roof, and it's, it could have been something else, not necessarily a church. It could have been, I don't know, a gathering room in a university, or very unusual somehow, and actually interesting. With those enclosed galleries, and with 2 or 3 levels of galleries. Really, if I would have seen this, and it would have been difficult at first to truly think that this is a church, especially if I didn't look carefully on the left. But on the right, really an unusual church. Actually interesting somehow. It's an interesting idea. It's almost as if the sacred and the profane met or intersected in this building. Yes, towards the outside it is a church, all right, but inside is something else. And this is the last image of the works of this Danish architect today.